us today. We're going to get started in just a minute. We'll give everyone a minute or so to hop on and get settled in. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to send them in the chat or the Q&A box, and we'll get to them at the end of the webinar. I always think it's fun to start webinars by having folks tell us where they're joining from. Usually we have folks from all over the US and even other countries. So in the chat, if you want to share where you're joining from, please feel free to do that. I will go first. I am joining from Raleigh, North Carolina. So if there's any other North Carolina folks, which I'm sure there will be, it's great to meet y'all. So we have Central Texas, Coastal Oregon, wow, Pennsylvania, New Hampshire, Arkansas, Indiana. Wow, we have folks from all over. Well, thank you all so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your time and we're excited to get started. And I think on that note, we have a lot of content to cover, so we will go ahead and get started. But if you're now just joining, please feel free to share where you're joining from in the chat. It's great seeing where folks are from. Hi, everyone. My name is Lindsay Josephs, and I'm a demand generation specialist at OpenStax's. And today we're joined by the wonderful Dr. Amy Baldwin, who is the senior contributing author of OpenStax's College Success Textbook Series. And today we are going to be interviewing Dr. Baldwin about her experience writing these 3 textbooks, the unique features and content of these textbooks, which one is best fit for you and your course, and more. To begin, we're going to cover our agenda. So we're going to start off by briefly introducing Dr. Baldwin, and then briefly introducing OpenStax's and everything that we do. Next, we'll head into our Q&A session. We'll cover how you can access the textbook for free, how to access a text and its free instructor and student resources, and then answer your questions. So please feel free to share any questions that you have in the chat or the Q&A box. We're really excited to answer them. To begin, let's introduce Dr. Amy Baldwin. Dr. Baldwin has dedicated her entire career to supporting students in their successful transition to college. She wrote the first groundbreaking student success textbook for community colleges and for first-gen students. After 18 years as an award-winning community college professor, Dr. Baldwin now serves as the director of the Department of Student Transitions at the University of Central Arkansas. This unique blend of experiences provides perspective onto critical student and faculty populations, which Dr. Baldwin has brought to the 3 college success textbooks in her extensive work with several organizations outside of OpenStax's. Thank you so much, Dr. Baldwin, for joining us today, and we're really excited to have the chance to speak with you.
Thank you so much. I love talking about college success, so thanks for the invitation.
Of course. It's a wonderful textbook series, and we're so glad that we have so many folks registered and on our call today to learn more about it. Before we dive into the text, we're just going to provide a brief introduction to OpenStax's. A lot of folks here are probably familiar with OpenStax's, but if you're new to OpenStax's, there's a few key things you'll want to know about what we do and who we are. To begin, we are an educational initiative based out of Rice University in Houston, Texas. As part of a nonprofit organization, we are able to sustain our operations through very generous philanthropic support. We receive support in the forms of grants from foundations, individual donations, governmental grants, and financial support from our tech partners who incorporate OpenStax's content into their learning technology products. We are a mission-oriented organization, and our mission is to improve educational access and learning for everyone. Our main area of work involves publishing a library of over 60 free, online, peer-reviewed, openly licensed textbooks for both higher education and K-12. Since we published our first textbook in 2012, we have saved students over $1.8 billion in textbook costs, would not be possible without the incredible efforts of authors like Dr. Baldwin and folks like y'all who use our textbooks. So thank you for that. I just mentioned that OpenStax publishes openly licensed textbooks, but what exactly does that mean? OpenStax textbooks are an example of open educational resources, or OER. We have a wonderful definition up here on the screen from the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation. And in essence, open educational resources are defined as any teaching and learning materials that are available for public use, don't cost anything to use, and that lack traditional copyright restrictions. So instructors can edit, revise, rearrange, and redistribute the content to meet their course needs. OpenStax currently offers over 60 textbooks in the humanities, social sciences, math, sciences, business, and college success. All OpenStax textbooks are aligned to course topics and outcomes. Additionally, all OpenStax textbooks are written by experienced and expert faculty like Dr. Baldwin. All OpenStax textbooks go through an extensive peer review and revision process to ensure that the content is representative of diverse audiences, up to date, and clear for students to understand. Accessibility is a main priority for OpenStax, so our textbooks are available in a variety of formats and platforms. You can access our textbook for free online as a downloadable PDF or as an interactive online textbook, or you can even purchase a low-cost print copy if you prefer print. Lastly, OpenStax textbooks receive regular errata and currency updates. Users of our textbooks can submit errata suggestions on our website for our subject matter experts to review. Our subject matter experts and writers make these edits in the online version of our textbooks periodically, but we also make sure to publish new editions of textbooks when there's major revelations or discoveries in a field. Overall, OpenStax textbooks look a lot like the textbooks that are published by for-profit publishers, but what differentiates OpenStax from those publishers is that our textbooks are available for free on our website as these openly licensed resources. OpenStax offers much more than just a textbook. Each textbook comes with free instructor and student resources like LMS course cartridges, test banks, and lecture slides. We also offer free webinars like this one and free articles on the OpenStax blog about tips and tricks for using our resources, teaching strategies, and more. Our support center is an excellent resource to turn to if you have any questions about OpenStax, and our incredible customer support team is here to help you use OpenStax in your course. Lastly, OpenStax also offers over 90 partnerships with education technology companies that you can use alongside your OpenStax textbook. We even offer our own Ed.D tool called Assignable Beta for our life sciences textbooks that allow instructors to incorporate readings and assessments from their OpenStax textbook in their learning management system. Now that we've provided a little bit of a deep dive into what OpenStax offers, we're just going to briefly cover this college success publication timeline. So OpenStax's first college success textbook was published in March 2020. And over the past several months, we've published 2 new college success textbooks, which we'll dive into further along in the webinar. There's College Success Concise, which is the condensed version of the March 2020 College Success textbook. And then there's Preparing for College Success, which is fit for K-12 and high school students. Now we're going to begin our Q&A session with Dr. Baldwin. Welcome, Dr. Baldwin. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you could start by just introducing yourself, that would be great.
Sure. And I just had to smile a little bit because the timeline that you just showed, I just always think what a terrible time, what terrible timing we had to launch a book in March 2020. We did not know that COVID was going to be a issue. And so obviously, we adapted from there, but it is not a great time to launch a book. So very, very glad that the concise came out and the high school version came out, not in a pandemic. But a little bit about me. You did share kind of my role. My role actually right now, I am a senior lecturer at UCA. I stepped down from the director's position, and but I'm still in the same department and still kind of help with our first year college success course. And we spent 18 years at a community college. I'm about to start my 10th year at a 4-year institution, and have a great passion, as you'll probably hear, or if you've heard me talk before, about first year students in general, but especially the students that I work with, who are those that often need a little bit more support. Perhaps they're first generation college students, which I have a deep, deep love for. Or they're students who just didn't have the best academic success in high school, and so they're coming into our program and just needing some strategies and some tips and new habits to form. So very, very passionate about that, and also a hiker. So if you want to know something personal, I like to hike, and I like to hike long distances. So Lindsay, I don't know if you know, I did the Camino in Spain last summer, walked 500 miles across Spain, and did a little 200-mile walk, or about 200-mile walk in Wales. So I do get out of my office every now and then.
Wow, thank you so much for introducing yourself and providing some information about your teaching background. And I did not know you were a hiker, so that was a very fun fact for me to learn about. Those are quite impressive hikes. So, wow.
I can always give some tips later if somebody wants offline tips for where to go and where not to go hiking.
I'm sure we'll get some questions. Yeah, thank you so much. So now that we've learned a little bit about your teaching and writing background, we would love to learn more about the college success textbooks themselves. So what topics do the college success textbooks cover?
So the original version of the book covers, and you see the table of contents that you have here, those 12 topics. And those are pretty standard. If you have been in this field for a while, as I have, you're going to see some of the same content come up over time. And there's always going to be some emphasis on time management or personal management, goal setting, and then there'll be some academic strategies. Those kind of have gone in and out of popularity. They are much more popular now. And definitely health, wellness, financial literacy, and even a little bit of career. So you're going to see those kinds of topics throughout the original version. You'll also see some chapters on thinking. We always get people asking about critical thinking. There is a whole chapter on that. And then the communication chapter and the understanding civility and cultural competence. Those are kind of topics that have just come about in terms of popularity in standard textbooks, I'd say in the past 10 years or so. But a lot of the content is pretty tried and true and has not deviated much over the years. I think you have a slide that, and I'll be glad next, that shares the different table of contents. I was going to jump into that, but I thought the slide might be helpful. If you look at the concise version and you compare it to the original, you're going to see fewer chapters, of course, and so that was intentional. We went from 12 chapters to 8. We also took those chapters in the original and tried to find ways to make them shorter so that they were truly concise. And you're going to see 2 important changes, and those are also echoed in the Preparing for College Success book as well, that I'm really passionate about and excited. And those 2 things are the Building Relationships chapter and the addition of mental health and stress management as a framework for the health chapter. So the concise version was developed with the idea of a institution maybe needing only a 1 credit hour student success course, or maybe they are putting it in a half semester situation and they only have 8 weeks to cover the content. So the concise is really, you can use it for 3 credit hour, and that's what I'm doing at our institution. I decided that we would go with the concise because we wanted to add some additional content around the chapters. And so you can use it for 3 credit hours. It's robust enough for that, but it was really designed for those that have a 2 credit hour, 1 credit hour course. And then the preparing for college success, you're going to see it mirrors exactly the concise, with the exception of the first chapter being getting into college. So if you are teaching this at a high school and you have high school students who are needing that support and that information about what to do to actually apply to college and prepare, you'll get that extra bonus there.
Thank you so much for sharing, Amy. Later on in our webinar, we'll talk a bit more about how you can see the table of contents for yourself on OpenStax's website and look at these wonderful chapters for yourself. But this was a really wonderful overview into the topics covered in each of the 3 books. Our next question for you, and this is a very common question that we get, is what features make the college success textbooks unique?
I like this question because honestly, doing the features are some of my favorite things to do, kind of imagining what is it that we could put into the book. And when I am brainstorming features or thinking about revising features, I think about 2 different audiences. One is the student. What might compel the student to read the things in the box? We know students sometimes don't love to read, and that could be a whole nother webinar on another day about how to compel them to do that. But also, not only what is going to be compelling to the student, but also what could the faculty member use or drive students to do? So I kind of see it as 2 different things. One, it allows a brain break. They can kind of think about the content in a different way, but also could a faculty member use the feature in class or assign it? So we've got lots of great features, and I know we have some screenshots of a few of them. I'd love to kind of share some of those things with y'all. One of my favorite features that's in the original, and it's throughout the whole series, is it actually is interactive, although it doesn't look like it is. It does get updated, where we ask students for their opinions about how they feel about a certain topic. And so you can see right there, the feature is called What Students Say, and they have to make some choices about some of the questions. And then you can see, not totally in real time, but it does get updated as more students complete the survey, where students across the US and maybe even abroad fit on that kind of scale. So you're going to see, to the question, what is the most influential factor in how thoroughly you read the material for a given course? Very, very few students chose whether or not the course is part of my major. A lot of students, not a surprise, picked the how engaging the material or how much I enjoy reading it. And that is a great entry into talking about what are your motivations for reading. Notice that a lot of students who have completed this survey also indicate that it's about enjoyment and pleasure. And so then you can use that as a jumping off point. So I love that one in particular. I actually like them all, but that one's a good one too. It's really hard to write a textbook or throw a stone at a textbook and find one that does not have some kind of student voice. So not necessarily like super unique, but definitely I think really, really vital and helpful to students, because they like to hear from other students. And I don't take personal offense to that. If I'm going to tell them what they need to do to manage their time, they're probably going to nod and think, okay, well, she might know a thing or two. But if I brought in a student and that student said the exact same thing, they would completely buy it. It's just that student has more credibility than I do, more street cred. They're closer to their age. They've just experienced it. What does this 50-year-old woman know about managing her time when she went to college in the Stone Ages. So love that this feature is in all of the books as well. Very helpful. You'll see throughout all of the chapters, and this is what I was talking about in terms of thinking about the faculty who uses the book or assigns the chapters, these embedded activities. They are great, again, for students to stop, to think, to mentally go through the activity, but you could also assign it to them or ask them to do it in class. So let's turn to this page, or let's pull this up online, and let's look at this activity, and let's take a few moments to do it together, or something like that. I think is really great. This particular feature is called Student Story, a little different than the one we saw earlier, but this one comes to you through the Preparing for College, the high school version. And it is, again, embedding a student story. This is not a real student. The other version that you saw, or the other example student story, was a real student. This is a fictionalized student who is having an issue. What I love about this particular feature is that it allows students to kind of think about the complexity of the experience, and also really have to make some decisions about what they would do in that situation. So you see some prompting of questions under that, what do you think? Another great feature that's in the Preparing for College Success, the high school version, is a, go back one more, if you don't mind. I'll say it and then you can move to the other one. The Friends and Family Matter, or Family and Friends Matter, where again, we have another scenario with a fictionalized student that is related specifically to family and friends influence. Love this feature. It's only in the high school version, but it could be a great way to have conversations around their influences when they're in college. And that next slide shows kind of the rest of that feature. So you get a student scenario again, and you get an opportunity to walk through with the student what are the best options. And one of my favorite parts is the let's talk about it, where you script out or talk through how to have a conversation, because that students think talking to people is awkward, and especially talking to people about things that are hard is even worse. They'd rather poke their eyes out. So anything that I think can show them how to do it can be really, really helpful to them. This particular feature, another great feature, it is in the high school version, really geared towards students who are in the 9th through 12th grade, but it is that college readiness checklist. And so you'll see that interspersed every few chapters in the Preparing for College Success book, but it just allows students to kind of see where they need to be, what they need to do in terms of priorities or tasks for themselves. So those are a lot of features. We covered a lot of ground, and we probably talked really, really quickly. But the thing that I want to put a pin in this for is these are really developed with thought, with intent, and if used well, I think can really enrich the conversations that you have with students. It can enrich their understanding of the content, and at the very least, hopefully engages them in a way that just flat text, I've got to read this section on finances, may not, elicit, ooh, I hadn't thought about that before.
Thank you so much for sharing, Dr. Baldwin. I think I always love hearing you speak about these features because they really make the textbook that much more interactive and introspective and helpful for students. So it's great being able to hear about what these features mean to you and the value that they provide to students and instructors. I think we'll take a second here, just answer any audience questions that we have before we ask you our next question. I only see one question in the Q&A. So if anyone has questions, please feel free to share them in the chat or the Q&A. But Robert is wondering if you could share a best practice for confidence building in a math course.
Yeah, I'll be more than happy to see if I can put my spin on how I talk to students about any kind of course that they are struggling with. Um, Confidence comes from competence, and competence comes from practice and feedback. And so, anytime you can get students engaged in the practice and the feedback part, um, can help them build that confidence. Another piece that is really important, and you're going to see it in some of the chapters, especially the chapter on studying and test taking, is something called developing metacognition. And it's kind of a buzzword. It's something that didn't really appear in college success textbooks until the last 5 or 10 years. And it is about helping students think through their thinking and being aware of what they can do differently. And so I think in a math class in particular, if you're verbalizing the process by which they're going through to answer questions, and they are understanding when they got it right and why, and when they got it wrong and why, you are helping build that confidence in their ability to know if, how well they're doing, versus I'm just going to try to do this problem and kind of not even look at it, and then I'm just going to turn it in, and I get the grade that I get. So great question. I hope that was helpful to you. I was going to add, no, but nobody has asked this, so I'm going to just ask it to myself. Um, what are the things that students really pick up on, gravitate towards, and find a lot of value in? And I will tell you, I was telling Lindsay earlier, I have one more day of the summer class. I have a fantastic group of students. I have them captive for 90 minutes every day, 5 days a week. I'm sure they are so glad to be done with me after tomorrow. But I ask them constantly, what are you learning that's been helpful to you? And I'm always a little surprised, because I assume they're going to struggle with the academics, and they might, but that's not where their interest is at this point. And the two chapters that have been incredibly beneficial to them, and I have to admit, I don't always go deep on them, and I need to, which are the mental health chapter and the understanding your finances chapter. So I have students who have already told me in their final reflection that the information in those chapters really, really resonated with them and helped them solve a problem already. So if you are looking for what is it, I don't have time to cover all of this stuff, or I teach something else, and I'd like to infuse a little bit of these student success principles in there, I really want you to look at, I'm partial to the study strategies because that's where my heart is, time management, things like that. But I would look at that mental health and managing stress chapter and the finance chapter, and provide some, content around that, because it is incredibly beneficial to our students. And what's unusual, they want to learn. They want to learn it. So there's some motivation there.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, Dr. Baldwin. I love hearing about experiences that you've had teaching with this textbook. I think it really just goes to show how impactful this textbook can be, or these textbooks can be, for students. So it was great hearing about how your students have benefited from it immensely. I think we'll head on to our next question, which is, who should use the college success textbooks in their classroom?
Okay. And I think I can answer this and answer James's question in the Q&A, because he says he's the director of a high school early college program, and students need both college success and college prep. So the book for you, James, is the Preparing for College Success, because it is exactly the same as the Concise, with the exception of that first chapter that preps them towards applying. And then you could supplement if you needed to do some other content around that. But I would love to say the answer to this broad question, Lindsay, is everyone should use college success in their classroom. So a lot of times institutions have a success course. That's what we have. We call it Journeys to Success, and it is about being the best college student that you can be. And so we have a natural fit there. We also have a 1 credit hour class called Academic Strategies, and I use just 2 of the chapters from the original textbook and talk about how to take notes, how to read, how to study, and how to take tests. So I find that if you have a course already, or you're thinking about developing a course, whether it's 1, 2, or 3, the college success textbooks are fantastic for that. And as I said about James's situation, if you're in the high school, the concise or the preparing for college success, both of those could be very valuable. But I want to share, and I'm curious if anybody is at an institution that does this, that you're teaching a biology, you're teaching an econ, you're teaching a math class, you could pick a few chapters or one chapter in particular and assign it. And so you're not teaching a college success course in total over a semester, but you are infusing some principles. And I think that, that's the beauty of OER. You can pick and choose what you want. You could download the whole text and delete 75% of it, or modify it however you need, and then give students what they need at the time they need it. We call it on our campus just-in-time intervention, or just-in-time learning, and that's always another strategy.
Thank you so much for sharing, Dr. Baldwin. And I love the point that you brought up about the customizable, openly licensed aspects of this. I think something that's so great about OpenStax's textbooks is that because they're available for free online, because they're customizable, you can truly use a blend of these textbooks in whatever way you see fit for your course, or you can just use them as they come, which is really, really wonderful.
Yeah, and I've done both. I did customize, those first 2 chapters. I took them and I divided them out, and I went even deeper in the content for my 1 credit hour, and it's super easy to do. So
that's great. We have 2 more questions for you before we dive into how instructors and students can access the book, and then some audience questions. Our next question for you is, why openly licensed college success textbooks? Why is it important for there to be openly licensed, readily available, free college success textbooks on the market?
So a little bit about my background that I did not necessarily share. I wrote for a for-profit publisher, Pearson Education, if you are familiar with any of those books that I did early on, Community College Experience and First Gen College Experience as well. And so I've been on both sides of this equation. I also have one kid still in college, one young adult still in college, one who has graduated. So I've been a parent who's had to pay textbook bills, and I've been a college professor who has written textbooks and then teach students who sometimes can't afford the text. So OER has come a long way since I first encountered it many, many, many years ago. Was very intrigued by it, but I just remember thinking, wow, that seems like a lot of work. How would I get all my stuff together? And this was before these kinds of texts were readily available. But one of the things that really helped me turn the corner in thinking about this is I work with a lot of students. I have a lot of students in my class who they have enough money to cover tuition and fees, maybe get gas, maybe have a little bit of snack money perhaps, but the last little bit to purchase their texts is not there, or it's not there yet. And not getting access to their textbook within the first day of class can seriously undermine their confidence. So the question was about math confidence. I've seen students who have not been able to purchase access codes or textbooks in math classes not be able to do the homework, then not be able to sit for the first test because their financial aid just didn't come in, or they had to ask somebody in their family for that extra money to pay. So that's one of the reasons why I love this particular offering for students, because I can and I do put links to every chapter in Blackboard, and I say, and it's on the syllabus as well. And I go, here's your text. You're welcome to purchase a printed copy for about $30 if you want to, but you have access to it day 1. You have access to it all the time, and you can come back to it even after the class is over if you're so inclined. So I really think for students who are watching their budget, their first generation college students perhaps, or maybe they're low income students, it gives them a level playing field.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, Dr. Baldwin. I think that is something that we hear about a lot from students and instructors, is that their students cannot afford certain access codes or educational materials that are needed to succeed in their class. So having these free, high quality resources available really makes a big difference for students who are sometimes forced to choose between their next meal and buying a textbook for their course, or who have to drop out entirely because they can't afford their materials. So that's definitely a very important point to bring up. We have one additional question for you. So you're the senior contributing author of all 3 of OpenStax's college success textbooks. What was your writing process like? What were some core concepts, themes, ideas, or values that you focused on when you were crafting these 3 textbooks?
I have to say, so I'm the world's worst procrastinator. So I always tell students when I'm trying to teach them how not to procrastinate that I'm in the boat and that it's a real world problem and you got to get a handle on it. So my process was, I have a deadline. I need to get going and knock this stuff out. But really, I always approached any book that I wrote for college students with my college students in mind. And I kind of have a rule, like I don't put fluff in there. I don't put stuff that I don't think, it may be great stuff. And I hear a lot of great strategies. We often say things and offer ideas to students, but it wasn't going to go in the book if it wasn't truly research based. It didn't have immediate effect, like they could implement it. It was pretty easy. And I didn't want to put anything in there that sounded good but wasn't really practical. And I have students tell me all the time, I get feedback like, what note we talk about note taking. By the way, they love note taking strategies. Who knew? This is a new thing. They said they're terrible at note taking and they really appreciate the opportunity to practice. But I'll ask them, is this strategy something you would actually do? And if not, let's not put it in the book. Let's put only those things that I know students have said, this changed my life, this made things easier. So really it's a student-focused book. And that sometimes can get you caught up in, especially if faculty have an idea of what they want to cover, or they have course objectives they have to meet. Sometimes they might then have to tweak some things to fit into what their institution wants them to cover. But I'm like, my students are the readers. And if they don't want, it's not helpful to them, I'm not going to make them read it. So.
Thank you so much for sharing, Amy. That was really helpful and insightful for us to hear about. Yeah, so I see that we have a question in the chat. So before we dive into how to access the books and their ancillary resources online, I think it would be great if we answered this question. So Virginia says, we have an issue around first-year experience resisted by students in the past, and since it's been a 1-credit course, it doesn't transfer. How do you get around that argument?
So, and Virginia, thank you for asking that question because you're not alone. I think people have struggled with this for at least 20, 30 years, at least since I've been working on this course at a community college originally and now at a 4-year university. I'll give you the shortened version, and then I'll pop my email into the chat, and anybody can email me if you want a follow-up question. When I got here, I inherited a 1-credit, did not count for anything course, and it was very difficult to motivate students to complete it, even though they were required to do it. So we looked at our general education requirements, and we realized that this particular course, if we did it a certain way, actually met one of our categories. It's called responsible living, and it's about ethical living, living with ethics, and solving your own problems, that kind of stuff. So nutrition is in there, some other classes that are kind of more practical based. And so we ran through our curriculum councils to be able to offer this course in the general education core. So students who take it do get to check a box. You know what I mean? I don't mean it that way, but they check the box that it is part of their undergraduate degree. However, we do have 1 credit hour courses. And as I mentioned, we do an academic strategies course. We also do a career exploration course and some other 1 credits that are around these topics. And those were never intended for transfer at all. So those just slide in to fill in some of the hour gaps that students might have. So, if it is filling a need to help students get to the number of hours that they need to get to graduate, then there may be some incentive there. But this course can transfer. It doesn't always get accepted. And then oftentimes I will see people who have taken it at other campuses, and I will approve or not, depending on what the course is about. So you may think about, being a little more strategic if you can, not always can happen, and see if it might fit into your general education in some way, shape, or form with some tweaking. But one of the best ways to get it on the radar of administration is to get student voices asking for it. And usually people who finish the course will tell me and write, I wish every student took this. I think every student needs this. This course saved me. I would not be as successful without it. And sometimes that voice, hearing from students can influence administrators. It can influence other faculty, and definitely can influence student behaviors in terms of enrolling in it. And then we sold it to parents. Look at this course that tells you how to be successful. And a lot of times parents would say, oh, I really wish you would take that class your first semester. So maybe think of approaching it in a variety of different ways to get students to take it, and then it fit where it needs. So if I didn't really answer much of your question, Virginia, I'm going to pop my email down here. And anyone is welcome to email me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Baldwin. I think on that note, we are going to head on to our next slide. If you have any other questions, please feel free to continue popping them in the chat. We will answer a few more of them after these next few slides. But the next thing that we are going to discuss is how you and your students can access the College Success textbooks for free online. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So I am now on the OpenStax's website. So how you are going to go about accessing these textbooks. So the first thing you're going to do is head to openstax.org, and then you'll be brought to our homepage. Up here in the top menu, you're going to hover your mouse over subjects and then click on College Success. From here, you'll be able to access all 3 of our free online College Success textbooks. Let's say that I want to access College Success. I'm going to click on the book here. And then under Get the Book, there are a variety of different options. So 1, I can view the book online. From here, I'm brought into the interactive web view version of this textbook. In this interactive web view version, I can go to different chapters and different sections within those chapters. And as a student, I can even highlight certain parts of text and take a note. So let's say I take a note on this, and then I head over to chapter 8, and I want to make a note on this right here. Because I have those notes, I am now able to go to my highlights, and I can see all of the notes and highlights that I've made in this textbook. I can even print this as a sort of study guide or way to help me remember important course materials. This is a really unique and awesome feature of the online version of the textbook, which is one of the many reasons why we encourage students to view the online version and take highlights and notes where available. Another way that you can access the College Success textbook is by downloading a free PDF. The PDF version is particularly beneficial for students who lack reliable internet access throughout the course of the semester. At the beginning of the semester, they can download the PDF once, and then throughout the rest of the semester, they're able to access it even without internet access. So you click on download a PDF and then go to PDF. The PDF version will download for you, and then you can access that whenever you need. And as you can see, the PDF version contains all of the chapters, their sections, the activities, the unique features, everything that you would find in the online interactive version. Lastly, you can access College Success by ordering a print copy. Approximately 10% of students who use OpenStax's prefer a print copy for a variety of means. So we sell low-cost print copies through our Amazon page. Regardless, students are by no means required to purchase a print copy, and students and instructors can always access our books for free online through our website. Now that we've talked a bit about how you can access the College Success textbooks for free online, we're going to dive a bit into the free instructor and student resources that come along with these textbooks. Each OpenStax's textbook comes with its own unique suite of free instructor and student resources. The resources that come with your book vary depending on the title, but some of the instructor resources that come along with the College Success textbooks include LMS course cartridges, instructor's manuals, enhanced lecture slides, test banks, high school lesson plans, and DocX book customization that allows you to download specific chapters and sections and customize them directly in Microsoft Word. All OpenStax's textbooks come with 3 central student resources, and these are a reading and note-taking guide, a time management guide, and a guide to using OpenStax's. The reading and note-taking guide and the time management guide are actually taken from the original College Success textbook and are now encouraged for all students to use, regardless of which OpenStax's textbook they're using. Those are really excellent resources to share with your students as well. Accessing these free instructor and student resources is easy. So all students can access those 3 core student resources without needing to create a student account. However, for our instructor resources, we do require that all instructors create a free instructor account in order to be able to access them. Creating and accessing your instructor account is super easy, and the reason why we offer our instructor resources behind this account is because we want to ensure the academic integrity of these instructor resources. Some of our books, for example, come with test banks. We want instructors to be able to use these test banks in exams. So by making these test banks available through an instructor account, it ensures that only instructors are able to access these resources. All instructor accounts are manually verified by our amazing customer support team, ensuring that it truly is only instructors accessing these resources. Creating your instructor account with OpenStax's is very easy. I am going to share my screen again and just walk you through how to do that. So to log into your OpenStax's instructor account, I'm just going to head to openstax.org. Up here in the upper right-hand corner, I'm going to click on Log In. And once I click on that, I can either log into my OpenStax's account here, or I can sign up. You can join as a student or as an educator/researcher. As an instructor, I'm going to want to join as an educator. And from here, I'm able to input my information. From here, our customer support team will manually verify your account, and within 3 to 4 business days, you will have access to our instructor resources. I'm going to put the link to create your free instructor account in the chat, but we highly recommend creating your free instructor account to be able to access these phenomenal instructor resources. College Success is very unique in that these textbooks come with a very, very thorough instructor's manual that, Amy, if you want to talk about the instructor's manual a bit more, please feel free. But this is a really unique and incredible resource offered for these textbooks.
Thank you for saying those nice things, because I spent a lot of time on it. I just want to make a pitch for the first 18 pages of the instructor resource manual, and that'll be similar across all 3. I think are really, if I may say so myself, really, really helpful for anybody who is teaching for the first time, or is coming back to it after teaching, or just wants to refresh their memory of what it is that's important about the course, why we do it, and what students need. So it's kind of an introduction to the importance of the course. And anytime I onboard a new faculty member to teach the course, I always tell them the whole thing is very helpful, and it's got lots of great activities and ideas. But if you read the first 18 pages, it'll kind of explain why we're doing what we're doing and the value of the course. So thank you, Lindsay. You knew I was coming on to talk about my fabulous instructor's manual that I'm hoping people will read.
It really is a fabulous resource. So everyone definitely should take a look at it. But I love looking at the instructor's manual for College Success. I think it's so well done. I think folks here will really benefit from using it in their course.
Thank you.
We have a few minutes left for our webinar, so we would love to take this chance to answer some audience questions. So if you have any questions about the College Success textbooks, please feel free to send them in the chat or in the Q&A box, and we can answer them. I see we have one question asking if we will send out the recording of this webinar. Yes, we will. Tomorrow, you will be receiving an email with the webinar recording, as well as the link to create your free instructor account if you haven't yet already. So if you missed any parts of the webinar, if you want to share it with a colleague, you'll be able to do that.
And you should have my email address. Like I said, I know Virginia had said she would reach out as well, but certainly feel free to any questions about teaching or ideas. I've got, don't know if any of the ideas are good, but I've got lots of them, and I will share them. And then you can decide what works for you and what doesn't, for sure. But I will say, as we're waiting to see if anybody else has a question, the test bank and the slides, that is always someone that's always what someone is asking me for, like, do we already have these? And those can make a huge difference if you're teaching the course for the first time or teaching the book for the first time. You can save a lot of time and energy starting there, so take advantage of that.
Absolutely. I think we'll give it another minute for folks to add any questions. I'm not seeing any more questions in the chat or Q&A about the College Success textbook, so we'll give it another minute or so. But thank you so much, Dr. Baldwin, for this awesome interview today. I feel like I learned, every time I speak with you, I learn so much more about the College Success textbooks, and they're all such phenomenal resources. It's great that instructors and students have such readily available access to them.
Thank you so much. And, share it with somebody who's going to college that maybe in your family. It's free. See if they benefit from it, no matter where they go or what they're going to take. So, because there are some institutions that don't have a College Success class, but it's still helpful information for those people who are heading to those institutions.
Absolutely. One instructor wants to know if you've completed the Milford Trek in New Zealand.
Oh, no, I have not, but thank you now. It'll be on my wish list. Next summer is Scotland and Portugal for a couple hikes. So I'll have to put New Zealand on my, maybe Antarctica while I'm down there.
Sounds wonderful.
Yeah, but thanks for the recommendation. I'll be looking that up and watching some YouTube videos later tonight. So
I see we have one more question in the chat about OpenStax's homework. And Robert, if I don't answer your question entirely, please feel free to let me know or send a follow-up email to our customer support team. But if I'm understanding the question correctly, OpenStax partners with over 90 education technology organizations. And through these organizations, we offer supplemental homework products and tools that coincide with different OpenStax textbooks. I will add the link to that in the chat where you can find our technology partners and find one that works best for your textbook. But other OpenStax textbooks come with their own resources like test banks that you could possibly incorporate into homework assignments, or OpenStax textbooks, just like traditional textbooks, include practice problems, practice exercises, things of that sort. So you can also assign those to your students as well. I'm not seeing any additional questions. Thank you all so much for joining us today, for asking such thoughtful questions, and for being such an attentive audience. And thank you, Dr. Baldwin, for yet another fantastic webinar. If anyone has any follow-up questions, Dr. Baldwin put her email in the chat, and I will paste that one more time. But if you have any questions for the OpenStax team, you can email OpenStax customer support at info@openstax.org, and I will put that in the chat as well. Thank you so much, everyone. We really appreciate your time, and a huge thank you again to Dr. Baldwin for all of the wonderful information you shared. This has been great.
Appreciate it. Y'all take care.
Awesome. Have a good one. Bye.